Let's talk about some of the Supreme Court decisions. I talked about a little bit. Actually, I'll let you go. There's so many that just happened between Thursday and today. Which one do you want to talk about first?
So, like the biggest one that really like has everyone excited about was the Supreme Court. I think it's Texas House Bill 2.
Hmm.
What is it with all these people on these House Bill number twos? But the Texas House Bill, Supreme Court basically ruled that two of the restrictions that were implemented by this law were unconstitutional. They're unconstitutional restrictions on women's right to access involved in terms of birth control. I mean, not birth control, in terms of abortion.
Hmm.
Now, the two provisions had to do with admitting privileges, and basically stating that doctors performing abortions had to have admitting privileges at a local hospital in that immediate area.
Hmm.
That was ruled to not have anything to do, like Texas claimed, like, oh, this is about the health and safety of women getting abortions, and
Right.
this is the reason why we have to do these. But as I talked about last week, they unduly restricted the access to abortions, where you had maybe as many as 40 clinics. It was reduced with the law in effect. It was reduced to only 10 across the entire state. Texas is a huge state, and they only had 10 clinics open, and
Hmm.
this disproportionately impacted women of color and poor women as well. But it also drove up the cost of care. So that was one. One was the admitting privileges, and then the other one was, I think, was that they had to have hospital standard operating
Right.
facilities and equipment, I believe it was.
Hmm.
And that is just unnecessary, because the type of it's not like they're doing surgical hospital level
Procedures.
procedures.
Hmm.
So it was unduly burdensome, and the state just did not bear out in terms of the level of scrutiny involved in this case. So there have been plenty of restrictions on women's ability to get abortion all across the country,
Right.
by several different cases. But this is a Fifth Circuit case. So this Fifth Circuit case, this would apply to, even though it's a specific Texas law, arguably it would apply to other cases that have similar restrictions, can now be challenged, using this as precedent. But I thought it was really interesting because, we've had so much concern over these court cases, as we saw with the immigration ruling last week, the 4-4. What happens when you get a 4-4? You end up, the lower court decision
Hmm.
ends up, being just ends up saying. In this case, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals case, which upheld the Texas law, would have, but for the Supreme Court's action, Fifth Circuit, the Fifth Circuit Court's decision would have remained in place, and that would have left women in Texas with limited access to care. And when there's all types of considerations and problems that happen when you have lack of access to care, when people cannot afford to get the care that we need. It sends us, people have been concerned about sending us back to a dark age, to a period where people were, self-performing abortions, back
Yeah.
alley, just all types of the unimaginable, but it just unduly burdens rights and access. There's a really interesting piece in a progressive Christian blog I follow, that talked about how
I'm sorry. Hang on. Hang on.
when you look at
You follow a conservative, or is it progressive? You said.
progressive, it's
Oh.
progressive.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, it was just really interesting how it was really interesting how conservatives were upset with Donald Trump because he didn't have anything to say about the court ruling yesterday. He
Mm.
was mum on it yesterday. I didn't check to see if he had anything to say today, but they were really upset that he did not say anything about the ruling at all. That leads me to believe one of two things: either that he's just really stupid and doesn't pay attention, that's possible, or that he's not as frothing at the mouth conservative anti-choice as he pretends to be.
Well, that's the
Which we've seen
accusation. That's the accusation. There's a
we've
lot of
seen evidence of that.
yeah, there's a lot of conservative Christians who just firmly don't believe that Donald Trump is. I mean, hell, he didn't even know what Second Corinthians was. He pronounced it 2 Corinthians. So, I mean, they should already know. I mean, they should know by how he has never had any any regard for any type of Christian traditions in public. So, anyway,